On today's show, the Capitals snap their three-game losing streak and initial takeaways on Ryan Leonard's first NHL game.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about Alex Ovechkin as he scores yet another goal, bringing him so close to Gretzky, 4 goals away from breaking that record. I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about my initial takeaways from Ryan Leonard's first game. Listen, there is no expectations. That is what Spencer Carberry said. That's what Ryan Leonard said, is he just wants to go out there and have fun. What were my thoughts on his first game? I'll talk about that. But to get it going here, the Capitals snap their 3-game losing streak against the Bruins. And to be honest here with you guys, this is not the Bruins team that we're used to seeing. They have a lot of injuries. They traded their captain. They have had coaching changes that I think that this team is just dipping their toes into the rebuilding process. And I think a lot of changes will take place this summer. But if you thought it was going to be easy for the Capitals, that was not the case. The Capitals started the game strong, lost their way in the second period, but ended up finishing strong. And ultimately, that's all that matters. They won the game after dropping 3 games straight. And it was a cool game for me. And I haven't felt this level of excitement as a Capitals fan for quite some time. For Ryan Leonard, first round pick, 8th overall, to see what he has in the tank. We've heard about it pretty much since he was drafted, that he was going to be this next level player. And what we saw was evidence of that, knocking it out of the park at Boston College, knocking it out of the park on the international stage. That it is exciting. And, he didn't necessarily blow up in this game. He didn't really pop off the page, if you will. Didn't make any glaring gaffes either, if you will. I think that to expect him to go out and change the world in his first game would have been nice, but not really realistic. But the one thing I will say is he didn't look out of place. You take a look at it, you can really play well at the NCAA level. That is totally different, a totally different beast once you're playing pro hockey in the NHL. The guys are bigger, they're faster, in a lot of cases, more skilled. But this was a good game at Boston. He's used to playing in that venue, playing at Boston College, that it was a good homecoming. His parents were there. And it was just a really great moment. I heard that up in press row that most of Boston College was in attendance. So just a really good feel-good story. But let's dive into the game in general. Like I say, the Capitals snapping that 3-game losing streak. That is the feel-good vibes that I'm looking for. I saw the Capitals struggle when they fell to the Jets, the Wild, and the Sabres. And, you take a look at it, the Jets, I think that a lot of people probably had that circled as being a tougher game. But on paper, the Minnesota Wild should have been an easier game. And the Sabres, if we're just going based on standing, should have been a walk in the park. But what do we know about facing the Sabres this year? Not the case. And even a team like the Jets struggled against them. So it was a really good thing for the Capitals to get off the schneid, if you will, and get back into the win column. So a great evening for the Capitals standout performances. Alex Ovechkin is nearing that NHL scoring record, like I talked about. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the closing segment there. But the goal that he found past Swayman there, it was a gift. It was like a gaping open net just right there, just tap it in. And Alex Ovechkin is just like Thank you very much. I think I will get one goal closer to Gretzky. So it was a great moment, but it required a bit more skill, some great passing. I think that when you watch these games at home, I think you can appreciate it a little bit more when you're at the game. But when you watch it on TV or on your phone or whatever the case might be, it looks so easy. Like maybe I could pick up a hockey stick and go out there and do it. Probably not, unless you're a hockey player. But Dylan Strome also continues to knock it out of the park this season and scored another goal, a multi-point game, contributing significantly. And that's one of the things that Dylan Strome has done all season long, has been that constant contributor. Played primarily on the first line center. We've seen him a bit here at second line center, but is a guy that has put in the work. Leads the team in points, and ultimately what has put the Capitals into the position in large part. That's a big responsibility for Dylan Strome to be the guy a good chunk of the time to feed those pucks to Alex Ovechkin. And Dylan Strome has been next level. The Caps improved to a 19-6-1 in a bounce back game after a loss this season. So you take a look at it, the Capitals did not enter into that no man's land that they have not entered into this year, and that is 4 straight losses. That would have been tough, but to be clear here, this game could have gone the other direction. In the second period, the Bruins could have vacuumed the momentum and just skated straight into victory lane. Was not the case. But just to get it going here for the Capitals in the game, Nic Dowd opened the scoring with a shorthanded goal, his 13th of the season, tying his career high. And, Nic Dowd, an unsung hero in a lot of ways. I'm not totally unsung, but, I think that there is somewhat of a negative stigma surrounding fourth line players, that they're less talented than, let's say a top 6 player. But I think that if we're talking about the fourth line, if we're talking about Nic Dowd in particular, it's in air quotes, because Nic Dowd, I think, could play very well. It's just that is where he has thrived for so many years, and ultimately why I think he is the last player left that's going to be a free agent this summer that the Capitals need to do their level best to sign him to a new contract. That goal was assisted by none other than Brandon Duhaime. The cool thing about the Capitals is, it's been a bit of a turnstile in the fourth line throughout the years. Nic Dowd has been that constant presence. It is good that he is always able to, and I think it's the alpha qualities of Nic Dowd, that he kind of takes control of that fourth line. I don't think that this is happenstance or serendipity or kismet, if you will. There is a reason that fourth line has such great success. And Brandon Duhaime, a lot to like about his game. He has a bit of a character, if you don't know those mic'd up moments. Those are always fun to watch, and a bit of a physical snarl to his game. Other than Tom Wilson, one of the true tough guys on this team. But Ovi's historic goal, again, I'll talk about Ovi a little bit more in depth in the final segment. Ovechkin scored his 891st career goal on the power play, just 4 goals shy of the Gretzky record. So quite a thing, passing Gretzky there. So do I think it's going to happen? There's enough games left, and if he continues to score on the clip that he is, I really think that is the case. But it is exciting times as a Capitals fan to see what he is accomplishing here. Again, it wasn't too long ago. It was last summer talking on the show and listening to, it's not just me, other people out there, is he going to be able to catch and pass Gretzky under this current contract, or is it going to require an extension? It far exceeded any of our expectations as he closes in on history. He became the 3rd highest goal scorer for players over 39 in the NHL with 38 goals this season. So defying odds, that is the one thing that I'm going to say about Alex Ovechkin. And you take a look at how he started last season off to his slowest start in the goal scoring department in his entire career. Definitely has found a way to turn it on here this season. But you take a look at it, like I said, the second period challenges, the David Pastrnak, one of the key marquee names left on the Boston Bruins. I'm thinking they're going to want to hold on to that guy. Was the answer. Helped motivate that team, helped in the offense. and I think is kind of the de facto leader on this team right now, being that they're, if you just take a look at this current roster of the Bruins as is versus earlier this season, or even more noticeable last season or the season before, that it is definitely a team in transition. With that said, like I said off the top, still a team that posed challenges to the Capitals. But what did the Capitals do? In the third period, they regrouped. And this is the new look Capitals this season. Not new look. I mean, we've seen it this season, but this season, the 23 or the 24-25 Capitals rebranded as a team that has some pushback. You take a look at last year's Capitals team. If they, were down by a goal or two or whatever the case was, or say a team really had some solid pushback, they'd kind of just recede into their shell. Not the case, as the Capitals found a way to regroup, tighten up, batten down the hatches, and skate into victory lane. Dylan Strome scored his 24th goal, putting the Caps back in the lead at 3-2. Strome has 4 points in his last 2 games and has tallied at 72 points this season. Can you believe it? This Dylan Strome, this guy was put on the scrap heap by the Chicago Blackhawks a couple of years ago here. And again, former GM Brian McClellan seeing a diamond in the rough has been an absolute game changer. Again, I don't think that, Brian McClellan was able to look in the future and know that, hey, Nick Backstrom's not going to be with us for very long, but in any event has been absolutely huge for this team. Tom Wilson, good old number 43, continues to knock it out of the park. Your future captain, his 32nd goal of the season, marking his 28th career game winner. So you take a look at what he has been able to accomplish this year, and it's quite stunning. And, it's not just him. It's all the different players that have seen their putting up career numbers, whether I'm talking Chychrun or Protas or any of these guys. Tom Wilson is in that same breath and has been absolutely huge. But the defense holds strong. Despite that late goal by Pastrnak, the Caps defense and Charlie Lindgren's key saves secured the win. That's the big thing to take away from all of this, was that, if it wasn't for Charlie, if it wasn't for this team digging deep, I could be talking to you right now about a 4th straight loss. Not the case. This was the game to win, because there's not a big gap. There is going to be a game Wednesday night against a much better team. So hopefully the Capitals can continue with this positive momentum that they secured, getting back into the win column. I think that had they lost 4 straight, we might be looking at far worse things here. But all things considered, a great game for the Capitals, a great game for Ryan Leonard, which I'll talk about in the next segment. But that's what I'm looking at here, is positivity surrounding this team right now. The youth infusion of Ryan Leonard is going to be a real difference maker. I do believe it. I think that just having some new blood, having that youthful exuberance, I think that is exactly what the doctor ordered. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Ryan Leonard's first game. Had to be a bit surreal from him, just going right from Boston College to the NHL and the Washington Capitals and Alex Ovechkin. I'll discuss straight ahead. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. Now, personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this next segment here, we're talking all things Ryan Leonard. And let me tell you, I've been waiting for this moment all season. I was talking about this a bit earlier on my other podcast, the Caps Minute Cast, talking about where he was going to fit in the lineup. That was one of the big things that was swirling around in my brain here. Were the Capitals going to do the safe thing and have him cut his teeth in the NHL playing on the fourth line? Kind of like what we have seen with other players like Anthony Beauvillier, these kind of guys that I think, a good mentorship from a guy like Nic Dowd could have been, a possibility. But on the show earlier today, I thought, no, this isn't just any old player. This is a first round pick, 8th overall pick, that this guy has a pretty good upside. Put up 30 goals for Boston College, has a great physical presence, can move the puck well, a great skater, has some snarl to his game. He is the complete package as far as I'm concerned, and he's only 20 years old. Signed that 3-year entry-level contract. He is going to be the face of this franchise for years to come. Not the only face. Tom Wilson, like I said, after Alex Ovechkin hangs up the skates, I think that he is going to be the face. About right next to that, can you almost see that like outside on a banner, Tom Wilson and Ryan Leonard, like, that's greeting you at Cap One Arena. I can kind of already visualize it in my mind. And it's interesting that both players, it's not a carbon copy, but have similar characteristics. They both have a physical presence to their game, both great goal scorers. But in a lot of ways, if you look at the advanced metrics, Ryan Leonard is even a better player, at least ostensibly, than Tom Wilson is. So it is quite exciting. And the one thing that's interesting is I thought that Ryan Leonard and Tom Wilson would hit it off swimmingly. And, they texted back and forth. But when asked about, Tom Wilson, did you give him any pep talk or anything? He's like, no, he's a pretty confident guy. I think he was good. That I wonder if there's so much alike that maybe it's one of those things where if you're two people and they have almost this similar personality, sometimes they almost repel each other. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it. But in any event, I think that he is going to be next level for this team. And the hard part for me is taking a look at it and looking at the winners and the losers, as there is always winners and losers in these kind of scenarios. And in this case, it is Taylor Radish. He is the loser, at least for now. And this is not to disparage what he has done, but it has to be a bit difficult. Taylor Radish, who has played 73 games for the Capitals this season at 7 goals and 20 assists, has helped get the Capitals, at least in part, to where they are right now. And then the new young guy, the 20-year-old guy, the first round pick, skates in. And now I'm sitting up in the press box in my fancy clothes looking down going, now what? And I know I shouldn't be thinking about this in a moment like that, but I am. That's what I'm thinking about. So the question that I have is, it was Taylor Radish tonight. Is there the possibility it's Andrew Mangiapane the other night? Or is this the end of the Taylor Radish experience in Washington? That's not what I really want to dive into, but it is one of the topics that's associated with it. So, like I said, earlier in the day, I was talking about where Leonard would fit in the lineup. And as it turns out, Spencer Carberry was thinking somewhat similar to how I was thinking, or vice versa, however you want to look, that they put him on the second line, that, hey, this guy, the Capitals, they have it buttoned up, right? They are in the playoffs for sure. It's not like they are trying to claw their way in there and they have to really play it safe. That, even if you went out there and flailed, say he just played horribly, wouldn't be the case. But, in some alternate reality, say that was the case, doesn't really matter. The Capitals saw what he has in the tank. He skated 14 minutes, 14 seconds tonight. That's a substantial amount of ice time for a young guy in his first game in the NHL. And like I said, he did not look out of place. There was that kind of awkward moment where Dylan Strome scored the goal and he's pumping his fist, and Ryan Leonard's kind of going over to put the arm around him, and he's just kind of skated away from him. So I kind of sometimes wonder, as far as the other players on the team, are they welcoming him 100%, or are there guys on the Capitals that are thinking, hey, what about Taylor? He was the guy that was in there. Or if you even want to get a little bit more specific, what about Connor McMichael? He is the guy that has killed it on the second line, and now he's playing on the third line. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I think it speaks to is the depth on this team, that not only are the Capitals' top six really good, but now if you take a look at it, lines 1 through 4 is pretty knockout. So it's quite a thing. And, again, it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Is Taylor Radish going to be the odd man out for the rest of the season? Or like I say, is a guy like Andrew Mangiapane in 73 games has put up 14 goals. So in that example there, you can see why that Mangiapane's in there, 14 goals versus 7. Definitely a better player, at least in that regard. But in his first game, he was impressive to me. Like I said, I don't think that he stood out like a sore thumb, like, whoa, that guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He looked like he fit in. And you know what, that kind of bigger frame, he doesn't fall into that same category as some of the other younger Capitals players that we have seen before. I'm talking to Hendrik Slop here. I'm talking Connor McMichael when they had their first go round with the Capitals on the big team, that they were kind of small and got driven off the puck. That's not going to be the case with Ryan Leonard. And we saw a bit of physical flair out there. He was shoving, he was pushing, he held his own pretty good for, like I say, a 20-year-old guy playing his first NHL game. That in and of itself is encouraging. And the thing of it is there was no real directive for him. He didn't have enough time to plan, and Spencer Carberry didn't have enough time to convey, the schemes and what the Capitals do out there, that it was just go out there and have fun. Obviously, you know how to play hockey. You've excelled at every level, that just go out there and do what you've done. And if you can even do a fraction of that on this team, then that could really help boost and take this team to the next level. Because in a lot of ways, even though he did not find the back of the net, I think just slightly changing the chemistry, changing the momentum, similar to what you see when they pull a netminder, just to kind of change the momentum. And sometimes that works. I think that just adding this youthful infusion, paid dividends. Again, he didn't find the back of the net, but I think, just kind of changing the pH a little bit. But like I say, delivering 3 hits on the game and finishing with a +1 rating. So he wasn't a liability, and ultimately all we could expect from him. It's going to be interesting what we see from Leonard in game number 2. I would like to think that he's going to be in the lineup in game number 2, and where does he slot in? The one thing I know about Spencer Carberry is he's constantly tinkering, has all season long. After the Capitals lost the first game of the season, he was tinkering with the lineup. So it'll be interesting to see if he still is, in fact, on the second line. What does that mean for Connor McMichael? What does that mean for Taylor Radish? And, what's the expectations for Ryan Leonard? For me, we're making it to the playoffs. And, this kind of just going out there and having fun is only going to last so long. At some point, the rubber is going to meet the road, and we're going to need to see production. I'm not concerned in the smallest bit here, but just going out there and having fun is only going to last for so long. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Alex Ovechkin as he closes in on history. When will it happen, and what are the projections? I'll discuss straight ahead. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On NHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code Locked On NHL for half off your first year. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the big story, one of the big stories, I will say, other than the victory, is that Alex Ovechkin scored a goal, kind of a goal that just kind of had to squib in there. There wasn't a lot of finesse. If you will, maybe a bit of a gift from Swayman, if you will. But all things considered, it's a goal. Whether you want to call it, the thing, before I go into it, that's what we're dealing with now. I hear a lot of different people, NHL people, saying, Alex Ovechkin, he's so great. He's so that. There's some hate out there as well. Like, how many empty net goals has he had? And how many gift goals? Are you guys kidding me right now? If you think it's so easy, then why isn't the marquee player on your team even close to getting it done? So there is some jealousy. There is some, haterade that is being consumed out there that I think that in a lot of ways, you take a look in Boston tonight, that when he scored the goal, that there was a lot of applause, even though, I'm guessing that was from some Boston fans out there that I think that they know their season is shot. Why not be happy for a guy that is going to be making history sooner than later? So that was an exciting moment that Alex Ovechkin gets a lot closer, and a tip of the hat to the Bruins fans as well for being classy and giving him his flowers, if you will, when he scored that goal. So the goal came after an effective passing sequence with John Carlson and Dylan Strome, who assisted on the play. Again, you take a look at it, I talked about this right off the top, that you're like, man, that looks pretty easy. No, you probably couldn't. Even though it looked good, or it looked easy rather, I think it was a little bit more complex than we think. Now, Ovechkin's power play at 4:17 remaining in the first, giving the Capitals a 2-0 lead over the Bruins. And, it was one of those moments. I talked about changing the momentum, Ryan Leonard joining the team, that sometimes, as I say, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. That him scoring that goal, I think, kind of helped propel this team forward. And like I say, Ovechkin even receiving applause from the fans at TD Garden. And the record chase, that's what it's all about right now. I know that the Capitals want to win a Stanley Cup, but there is kind of, a side story, a side storyline that has followed this team all year. And that is Alex Ovechkin and his chase of the great one, Wayne Gretzky, now 4 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. So quite an accomplishment, what he has been able to put up. And, when is it going to happen? It seems like it is getting closer and closer all the time. Now, upcoming milestones, he is projected to tie Gretzky's record on April 10th against the Canes and could break it on the 13th against the Blue Jackets. Now, Nic Dowd, for example, he is driven by, the accomplishments and the praise and just playing on a really great team this year. Nic Dowd praised Ovechkin during an intermission interview, calling him the greatest goal scorer of all time, highlighting the team's strong play. And the thing of it is you can talk era adjusted goals. You can talk this, that, and the other thing. For me, Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer of all time. People sometimes will say it's Gretzky. But what do we know about Gretzky? As they played with, a lot of the netminders back then weren't butterfly style netminders. They kind of just had that flailing style, like, oh, here's the puck. I guess I'm just gonna, But the flip side of that coin as well is that Gretzky was probably playing primarily with a wood stick, where they have these graphite and those composite type sticks. So quite a moment. And when it finally happens, I wonder if it is going to be a load off of Ovechkin's mind. Finally I did it. I can stop answering all the questions about when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? It happened. And then he has just another season left to just really take it to the next level. So make it that much harder for the next guy. But the goal marked Ovechkin's 38th of the season, increased his NHL record for power play goals to 322. So quite an accomplishment for Ovechkin as he continues to keep knocking it out of the park. And again, I don't think a lot of people saw this coming just based on last season. But the thing of it is, he found a way. He found a way to punch Father Time in the face and said, not Alex Ovechkin. I'm going to keep rolling even at 39 years old. That is what he has done, and that is what makes him a truly great player. And I think it's going to happen a lot sooner than any of us think. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.